The massive alien ships appeared in Earth's sky without warning. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, like floating cities made of crystal and metal. People around the world stopped what they were doing and stared upward. Some screamed, some prayed, some just watched and waited. Commander Han stood in the Earth Defense Force headquarters, his hands gripped tight behind his back. The screens around him showed the alien vessels hanging above every major city on the planet. There were 12 of them, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. "Sir, they're broadcasting something," a young officer said, her voice shaking. "Put it through," Han ordered. The screen flickered. A creature appeared that looked like a tall lizard walking on two legs. Its scales shimmered green and gold. Its eyes were large and dark. When it spoke, a computer translated its words into every human language. "People of Earth, do not be afraid. We are the Galactic Concordance. We have watched your species for many years. You have finally reached the stars, and so we come to greet you. We bring an offer of friendship and protection." Doctor sat in her laboratory, watching the same broadcast. She was the best on Earth, the person who studied alien life. But now alien life had come to study humanity. She felt her heart racing as she recorded every detail of the creature on her screen. 3 days later, the aliens invited Earth's leaders to meet on their flagship. President Bin chose a small team to go. Commander Han would provide security. Doctor would handle scientific matters. Admiral would represent Earth's military interests. The inside of the alien ship was cold and sterile. The walls glowed with soft blue light. Strange symbols covered every surface. The delegation was led to a massive chamber where dozens of different alien species waited. There were creatures with too many arms, beings made of what looked like living crystal, things that floated in the air without any visible means of support. The lizard-like alien from the broadcast stepped forward. "I am Counselor Ara. Welcome to the Concordance flagship. You stand among representatives of 847 civilized worlds. We are here to offer Earth membership in our great alliance." President Bin nodded respectfully. "We are honored by your offer. What would membership require?" Ara's lipless mouth curved into what might have been a smile. "Very little, really. We ask only that you surrender control of your military forces to Concordance oversight. This is for your own protection. We also require permission to establish bases on Earth and your Mars colony. These will serve as trading posts and cultural centers. Finally, we must conduct a resource evaluation of your solar system to determine what Earth can contribute to the Concordance economy." Admiral felt her stomach tighten. Everything the alien described sounded like occupation, not friendship. She glanced at Han and saw the same concern in his eyes. "And if we decline?" President Bin asked carefully. Another alien stepped forward. This one looked like a giant insect with armor-plated skin and multiple sets of eyes. "I am Overseer Axe. No species has ever declined Concordance membership. It would be unwise. The galaxy is dangerous for those without protection." The threat was clear even if the words were polite. "We will need time to consider," President Bin said. "Of course," Ara replied. "Take 3 days, we will await your answer." Back on Earth, Doctor worked through the night. During the meeting, she had secretly activated a small device that data from the Concordance computer systems. It was a risk, but she had to know more about these aliens. What she found made her blood run cold. She burst into Commander Han's office at dawn. "We cannot join them," she said, throwing data tablets onto his desk. "Look at this. I found records of the last 50 species that joined the Concordance. Every single one followed the same pattern. First, they surrendered their military. Then the Concordance established bases. Then came the resource evaluation. Within 50 years, each species was stripped of everything valuable. Their people became servants and slaves. Their worlds became mining operations." Han picked up one of the tablets and scrolled through the information. His jaw clenched. "The Concordance isn't an alliance. It's an empire built on lies." Exactly, said, and we're next. Admiral joined them an hour later. Together, they presented their findings to President Bin and the Earth United Council. The debate lasted for hours. Some council members wanted to accept the offer anyway, believing Earth was too weak to refuse. Others demanded immediate military action, but most agreed with the president's decision. On the third day, President Bin stood before the cameras and broadcast his message to the Concordance and to all of Earth. We thank the Galactic Concordance for their offer. However, after careful consideration, Earth must decline membership at this time. We wish to maintain our independence and sovereignty. We hope the Concordance will respect our decision and that we can establish peaceful trade relations as equals. The response came within hours. The 12 Concordance ships moved to the edge of Earth's solar system. More ships arrived, hundreds of them, forming a massive blockade. Counselor Ara's face appeared on every screen on Earth. It saddens us that Earth has chosen isolation. For your own protection, we are establishing a quarantine zone around your solar system. No ships may enter or leave until you reconsider. We do this out of concern for your safety and for the safety of the greater galactic community. Think carefully about your choice. The transmission ended. Commander Han stood at his window looking up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, alien ships surrounded humanity's home. They called it protection. They called it safety. But Han knew the truth. It was a cage, and soon it would become a tomb unless Earth acted. He activated his communicator. This is Commander Han to all Defense Force installations. Activate Prometheus Protocol. Begin immediate preparations. We don't have much time. Around the world, in secret bases and hidden facilities, humans began to move. They had been preparing for this possibility since the first telescope spotted signs of alien civilization decades ago. They had built weapons and ships in secret. They had trained soldiers for a war they hoped would never come. But now the war was here, even if no shots had been fired yet. The Concordance had underestimated humanity. They thought Earth was weak, desperate, and alone. They thought humans would surrender rather than fight. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Doctor returned to her laboratory and began analyzing every piece of Concordance technology she had scanned. Admiral mobilized Earth's fleets and began fortifying the inner solar system. President Bin sent secret messages to Earth's outer colonies, warning them to prepare. And Commander Han looked at the plans for humanity's hidden weapons and allowed himself a grim smile. The Concordance wanted to undermine Earth, to break humanity's spirit before they broke humanity's body. But humans had survived ice ages and plagues. They had climbed from caves to conquer their own planet, then reached for the stars. They had fought each other for thousands of years and learned hard lessons about warfare, sacrifice, and survival. The Concordance thought they knew what humans were capable of. They were about to get an education. The blockade had been in place for 2 weeks when the accident started. Captain Park was inspecting the Luna base fusion reactor when the alarm sounded. Red lights flashed throughout the facility. The reactor temperature was climbing fast, much faster than should be possible. "Shut it down," she screamed at the technicians. "Emergency protocols now." They tried. Every safety system failed. Every backup system refused to respond. The reactor came within seconds of a catastrophic meltdown before personally overrode the entire computer system and dumped the core manually. When the emergency passed, she stood in the control room covered in sweat and radiation burns. "How did this happen?" she demanded. The chief engineer pulled up the logs, his face pale. "Someone rewrote the safety protocols. It's subtle. The code looks normal, but there are hidden commands buried deep. This was sabotage." Back on Earth, Doctor analyzed the code. Her worst fears were confirmed. "Concordance infiltrators," she told Commander Han. "They must have agents here, probably arrived years ago before we even knew the Concordance existed. They've been waiting for orders. Can you find them? Han asked. I'm trying, but they're good, very good. More accidents followed. A colony ship heading to Jupiter's moons suffered a navigation failure and nearly crashed into Europa. 3 orbital factories lost power simultaneously. A medical station's life support system malfunctioned. People died. Not many, but enough to spread fear. The Concordants sat outside the solar system and watched. They didn't attack. They didn't need to. They were destroying Earth from within. Then the propaganda began. Broadcasts spread across the galaxy. The Concordants told every species they had ever contacted that humanity was dangerous. They showed footage of Earth's wars, its violence, its history of conflict. They claimed humans were too primitive, too aggressive, too unstable to join civilized space. Humanity must be contained, Overseer Axe announced on galactic communication channels. They are a threat to peace and order. We established this blockade not to punish them, but to protect the galaxy from their violent nature. Trade ships from other species stopped coming to Earth's colonies. Diplomatic channels went silent. Humanity found itself alone and isolated, exactly as the Concordants intended. Engineer Minyu Shin worked in a secret facility deep under Earth's surface. He was part of the Prometheus Protocol, the project Han had activated. For years, he had been reverse engineering alien technology captured from crashed probes and abandoned survey satellites. Now he had to turn his research into weapons. The problem is their shields, he explained to a team of military officers. Concordance shields are based on gravitational distortion. Our conventional weapons just bounce off or get deflected. What's the solution? Admiral asked. Minyu smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. We stop playing by their rules. We build weapons they've never imagined. Weapons based on human physics, human science, human creativity. They think they understand the universe. We'll show them they don't understand humans. While Minyu worked on weapons, Captain Park hunted infiltrators. She had identified 17 suspects so far. They looked human. They acted human, but small details gave them away. A reaction time slightly too fast. Knowledge they shouldn't possess. Patterns in their behavior that matched concordant psychology. She caught the first one outside a military base on Earth. The infiltrator looked like a middle-aged man named David, but when confronted him with evidence, his eyes changed. The pupils shifted color. His skin rippled. "You cannot win," the infiltrator said in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "The Concordance has defeated 847 species. You are nothing special." "We'll see about that," replied, and her team took him into custody. Under interrogation, the infiltrator revealed that there were dozens more scattered across Earth and its colonies. They had been sabotaging human infrastructure and preparing for the Concordance invasion. They expected Earth to surrender within months, broken by accidents and isolation. Commander Han used this information to hunt down more infiltrators. It was a race against time. Every day something else broke or failed. Every day more humans died from accidents. But slowly, carefully, teams found the saboteurs and removed them. Then a new threat emerged. Doctor was studying Concordance ship movements when she noticed something strange. The blockade ships were rearranging themselves into a specific pattern. She ran simulations through the computer, and her blood went cold. "They're preparing to attack," she told the Earth United Council. "The ships are positioning themselves as weapons platforms. Those aren't just blockade vessels, they're siege guns." "When?" President Bin asked. "Based on their power readings and charging patterns, I estimate 30 days, maybe less." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Concordance had tried the subtle approach. Sabotage, isolation, propaganda. When that didn't break Earth's spirit fast enough, they would resort to direct force. That night, something unexpected happened. A small alien ship slipped through the blockade and landed near Earth Defense Force headquarters. Commander Han deployed security teams, expecting another infiltrator or a bomb. Instead, a bird-like alien emerged with its wings raised in a gesture of peace. It had brilliant blue and green feathers and large, intelligent eyes. "My name is," the alien said through a translator device. "I am an ambassador from the Concordance, but I am not here as their representative. I am here to warn you." Han brought inside. The alien looked around nervously, as if expecting to be attacked at any moment. "Why help us?" asked. "Because the Concordance is evil," said simply. "My species was conquered 300 years ago. We were promised partnership. We received slavery. I have watched 47 other species suffer the same fate. The Concordance Council has voted. In 30 days, they will launch what they call a pacification strike. They will destroy your military capability and force your surrender. They have done this before. They have never failed." "What exactly is a pacification strike?" Admiral asked. Feathers ruffled in distress. "They will target your cities, your infrastructure, your bases. They will kill millions. Then they will offer you a choice: total surrender or total annihilation. Every species chooses surrender. What else can they do?" "Fight," Han said quietly. Looked at him with something like hope in its alien eyes. "Can you? The Concordance fleet is massive. They have weapons that can crack planets. They have fought wars across the galaxy for thousands of years." "They've never fought humans," Han replied, "and they're about to learn why that's a mistake." Agreed to stay on Earth and provide intelligence about Concordance tactics and technology. The alien was risking everything to help humanity. If the Concordance discovered its betrayal, its entire species would suffer. But the alien ambassador believed that humanity might be different. That Earth might succeed where 847 other species had failed. That the young, violent, primitive humans might possess something the older, wiser, more advanced species lacked: the will to fight back. Commander Han stood in the command center and looked at the countdown clock. 28 days until the Concordance attack. 28 days to prepare for the greatest battle humanity had ever faced. Around the solar system, secret orders were transmitted. Hidden ships powered up. Experimental weapons were loaded and tested. Soldiers trained for combat in space. Engineers worked day and night building humanity's last hope. The Concordance thought they had undermined Earth. They thought they had broken human spirit with sabotage and isolation. They thought the pacification strike would be a simple exercise in overwhelming force. They were about to learn the most important lesson about humanity. When pushed to the edge, humans don't break. They push back. 20 days until the Concordance attack. Admiral stood in a command center that officially didn't exist. It was carved into an asteroid in the belt, billions of kilometers from Earth. Around her, hundreds of officers worked at stations controlling systems the Concordance didn't know about. "Show them," she said quietly. The main screen flickered to life. Commander Han and President Bin appeared from their secure location on Earth. Doctor joined from Luna Base. They were about to learn Earth's greatest secret. 23 years ago," Admiral began, "when we first detected signs of advanced alien civilization, Earth's leaders made a decision. We would prepare for the worst while hopping for the best. We would build a second fleet in secret." The screen changed. It showed the view outside the asteroid base. Hundreds of ships hung in the darkness of space. They were sleek and dangerous looking, covered in weapons and armor. They didn't look like Earth's regular military vessels. These ships were something new. 200 warships, continued, built in secret across 2 decades. The Concordance has been watching Earth and our inner colonies. They know about our regular fleet. They've counted every ship, measured every weapon. But they don't know about these. We built them out here beyond their sensors using materials from the outer asteroids. Han leaned forward, studying the ships. "Are they ready?" "We've been running exercises for years," replied. These crews have trained together. They know their ships. They're ready to fight. What makes them different from our standard fleet? Asked. Smiled. That's where engineer Minyu Shin comes in. Minyu, please explain. On another screen, Minyu appeared from his underground facility. Behind him, technicians worked on massive devices that glowed with strange energy. Doctor, you've studied concordance technology, Minyu said. You know their shields work by bending space and gravity around their ships. Conventional weapons can't penetrate because they get deflected or absorbed. Yes, confirmed. That's why they seem invincible. They are invincible against conventional weapons, Minyu agreed. But we're not using conventional weapons. We've developed something called disruptors. They exploit quantum vacuum energy to create destructive interference patterns. In simple terms, they don't try to punch through concordance shields. They make the shields destroy themselves. Han raised an eyebrow. That's possible. The concordance doesn't think so, Minyu replied. They've been using the same shield technology for thousands of years. It's worked against every species they've encountered. But humans approached physics differently. We asked different questions. We found different answers. Our weapons are based on theories the concordance never developed because they didn't need to. They were always the strongest. Until now, added. President Bin spoke for the first time. What else do we have? Minyu pulled up a series of designs. Torpedoes that don't fly through space, they skip through quantum probability fields. Concordance point defense systems can't shoot what they can't predict. Valkyrie fighters that are smaller and faster than anything the Concordance uses. And the ships themselves are built differently. Concordance vessels are massive because they rely on heavy shields and armor. Our ships are quick and maneuverable. We built them for speed and precision. Doctor studied the designs, her mind racing. This could work. This could actually work. It has to work, Han said grimly. Because we have one chance. If we fail, the Concordance will turn Earth into dust. While the leadership reviewed military plans, Captain Park was conducting a different kind of operation. She stood in a communication room, sending coded messages to addresses scattered across Concordance space. Are you sure this will reach them? She asked the technician. As sure as I can be, he replied. These are the resistance networks told us about. Oppressed species throughout Concordance territory. Some have been fighting their occupation for centuries. His message was simple. Earth would fight. Earth would not surrender. And Earth invited every enslaved species to fight alongside them. The time for freedom was now. She didn't know if anyone would receive the messages. She didn't know if anyone would believe them. But she had to try. Humanity couldn't win this war alone. They needed allies, even if those allies were weak and scattered. On Mars colony, a civilian named Nam organized his own resistance. Wasn't a soldier. He was a farmer who grew food in underground greenhouses. But he had 4 children, and he refused to let them grow up as slaves. He gathered other civilians, people who wanted to fight but had no military training. Together, they built improvised weapons and prepared to defend the colony. It wasn't much. A few hundred farmers, miners, and technicians with homemade guns and determination. But it was something. Back in her laboratory, Doctor made a discovery. She had been analyzing the Concordance infiltrator technology, trying to understand how they had disguised themselves as humans. She found something unexpected. The infiltrators used a form of biological camouflage that required constant maintenance through a special device. Without it, they would revert to their true forms within days. Developed a scanner that could detect these devices. She distributed it to security teams across the solar system. Within a week, they had found 30 more infiltrators. Some were in positions of power, ready to sabotage humanity's defense. Some were gathering intelligence. All of them were removed. The Concordance lost their eyes inside humanity's defenses. Dr. Song, a quantum physicist, worked with Minyu on the final weapon tests. She fired a disruptor at a captured Concordance shield generator. The results were spectacular. The shield didn't just fail. It collapsed inward, creating a brief but intense gravitational pulse that destroyed the generator itself. "Beautiful," whispered. "Their own technology destroys them." "That's the idea," Minyu replied. "Use their strength against them." 15 days until the attack. President Bin made a decision. He would broadcast a message not just to Earth, but to every species under Concordance control. Helped set up a transmission that would bypass Concordance censorship. The president stood before the camera, looking tired but determined. Behind him, images of Earth, Mars, Luna, and humanity's other colonies played. "My name is Bin. I am the elected leader of Earth. I speak not just to my people, but to every intelligent being who can hear this message. The Galactic Concordance has demanded our surrender. They have blockaded our system. They plan to attack us and force us into slavery. We refuse. We will not kneel. We will not serve. We will not surrender. And we will not stand alone." He paused, letting his words carry across the stars. "To every species freedom, to every world under Concordance occupation, to every being who dreams of independence, we say this: the time to fight is now. We cannot promise victory. We cannot promise survival, but we can promise that Earth will stand and fight. We invite you to fight with us. Together, we can break the chains the Concordance has forged. Together, we can be free." The transmission ended. For a moment, nothing happened. Then responses began coming in. They were coded, brief, often just a few words, but they came from 17 different species across Concordance territory. "We will fight. We stand with Earth. Freedom or death." Commander Han watched the responses come in and allowed himself a moment of hope. Humanity wasn't alone anymore. The Concordance had made their greatest mistake. They had united their victims against them. The countdown continued. The Concordance fleet prepared to attack, but so did humanity. And humanity had surprises the Concordance could never imagine. The Concordance subjugation fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 500 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. Each one was massive, some stretching 3 kilometers long. They bristled with weapons. Their shields glowed with power. They had crushed 47 species before. Earth would be number 48. Admiral or commanded the fleet from his flagship. He was a veteran of 80 campaigns across the galaxy. He had never lost a battle. He didn't expect to lose this one. "Open a channel to Earth," he ordered. Commander Han received the transmission at Earth Defense Force headquarters. The alien admiral appeared on screen, his reptilian face twisted in what might have been pity. "This is your final chance," Or said. "Surrender now, accept Concordance rule, your people will be spared, your cities will remain standing. Refuse and we will reduce your world to ash." Han looked at the screen for a long moment. Then he smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "I have a message for you, Admiral. We are humanity. We climbed from caves to touch the stars. We survived ice ages, plagues, and ourselves. You are not the first to underestimate us. You won't be the last. Come and try." He cut the transmission. Or stared at the blank screen. Then he laughed. "Such courage, such foolishness. All ships advance. Prepare to demonstrate the price of defiance." The Concordance fleet moved inward toward Earth. They came slowly, confidently, shields up and weapons charging. They had overwhelming numbers. They had superior technology. They had centuries of experience. They thought they had already won. Admiral watched from her hidden command center in the belt. She counted the enemy ships, 500, and she had 200. The numbers weren't good, but numbers weren't everything. "All ships, this is Admiral," she said calmly. "Hold position. Wait for my signal." The Concordance fleet passed Neptune, then Uranus. They were heading straight for Earth, ignoring the outer solar system. Why wouldn't they? Their sensors showed no threats out there, Just ice, rock, and empty space. Now whispered. 200 human warships powered up their engines. They had been waiting silent and cold, invisible to concordant sensors. Now they lit up like stars. They accelerated toward the enemy fleet from behind, engines burning at maximum power. On the Concordance flagship, alarms screamed. "Admiral, 200 unknown ships approaching from the rear, they're human vessels." Or spun around in shock. "Impossible, we mapped all human military assets. Where did they come from?" "Unknown, sir, they're closing fast." "Turn the fleet around, engage them." But 500 massive warships couldn't turn quickly. They were built for power, not maneuverability. By the time they began to reposition, the human ships were in firing range. All ships ordered fire. Disruptors unleashed hell. The beams looked like twisted light, as if space itself was tearing. They hit Concordance shields and the impossible happened. The shields didn't deflect the weapons. They collapsed. They imploded. They destroyed the very ships they were meant to protect. Concordance vessels exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Dozens died in the first salvo. "What is this?" Or screamed. "What are those weapons?" His tactical officer had no answer. The Concordance had never seen weapons like this. Their shields, their greatest defense, were useless. The human ships didn't slow down. They raced through the Concordance formation like sharks through fish. Torpedoes skipped through quantum space, appearing inside Concordance hulls without passing through the armor. Ships detonated from within. Then the Valkyrie fighters launched. Wing Commander Jin Park led her squadron out of the carrier bay. Her fighter was tiny compared to Concordance vessels, but it moved like lightning. She could turn, roll, and dodge faster than Concordance weapons could track. "All wings follow me," she shouted. "Target their command ships." Thousands of Valkyrie fighters swarmed the Concordance fleet. They were too small, too fast, too many. Concordance point defense systems tried to shoot them down, but the fighters danced between the blasts. They fired missiles at close range, striking weak points in the massive enemy ships. Or's flagship shuddered as explosions ripped through the hull. All ships, form defensive sphere, concentrate fire on the human carriers. The Concordance fleet tried to regroup. They were still more numerous. They still had powerful weapons. They began to fight back. Human ships started dying. A destroyer took a direct hit and broke apart. A cruiser's reactor went critical. A carrier lost its engines and drifted helplessly. The space between planets filled with debris and burning hulls. "Keep pressing," ordered, even as she watched her ships die on the tactical display. "Don't give them time to organize." On Earth, Commander Han watched the battle through long-range sensors. "Activate planetary defenses. If any Concordance ships break through, we'll be ready." Around Earth, Luna, and Mars, weapon platforms powered up. Thousands of missiles armed themselves. Laser batteries charged. Nam and his civilian militia stood ready in their Martian greenhouses, knowing they were the last line of defense. The battle raged for hours. It wasn't clean. It wasn't easy. Both sides took terrible losses. Captain Park led boarding teams onto damaged Concordance ships, fighting in corridors and chambers never meant for humans. Specialist Sara breached a Concordance weapons platform and manually overloaded its reactor. Wing Commander Jin Park saw her chance. Admiral Or's flagship was damaged but still fighting. Its shields flickered weakly. If she could take it down, the Concordance fleet would lose coordination. "Blue Squadron on me," she called. "We're going for the flagship." Her squadron mates protested. It was suicide. The flagship was too well defended. They would never make it. "Then don't follow," Jin replied. "I'm going anyway." They followed, 20 Valkyrie fighters against a 3-kilometer warship. Concordance guns tore through them. 15 fighters died in seconds. 10. 5. Only Jin and 2 others made it through the defensive fire. Jin armed every missile she had. "For Earth," she whispered, and flew straight into the flagship's main reactor port. The explosion lit up space like a new sun. Admiral or died without even time to scream. His flagship broke in half. The command staff died instantly. The Concordance fleet lost its coordination, its leadership, its will to fight. "The flagship is destroyed," tactical officer shouted. "Enemy fleet is in disarray." "All ships pursue," ordered. "Don't let them regroup." The Concordance fleet broke. Some ships tried to fight, some tried to flee, some just drifted in space, their crews in shock. The humans pressed their advantage without mercy. This wasn't just a battle, it was a statement. Humanity would not be enslaved. 36 hours after the battle began, it ended. 327 Concordance ships were destroyed. The rest retreated, limping back to their territory with their shields down and their weapons empty. Earth had lost 89 ships. 67,000 humans died, including Wing Commander Jin Park. Her sacrifice saved millions. Commander Han stood in the command center, looking at the casualty reports. Every name represented someone who would never go home, someone who died to keep humanity free. "Sir," a young officer said quietly, "the Concordance is hailing us. They want to discuss terms." Han looked up. His eyes were hard as steel. "Tell them we'll discuss terms, but not surrender, never surrender. If they want to talk, they can talk about peace. Real peace, between equals." Around Earth, the surviving human ships gathered. They were battered, they were bloodied, but they had won. The Concordance had come to subjugate humanity. They had learned a hard lesson instead. Humans don't surrender, they fight back. The Concordance expected humanity to celebrate their victory and stay home. They were wrong. 2 weeks after the Battle of Sol, Admiral led a fleet out of the solar system, not to defend, to attack. She took 150 ships, everything that could still fight. Behind her came supply vessels, repair ships, and medical frigates. Humanity was going to war. "All ships set course for the system," ordered. "It's time to start freeing some worlds." The system was home to a species called the. They had been conquered by the Concordance 70 years ago. They were forced to mine rare minerals for Concordance factories. They were slaves in everything but name. When the human fleet arrived, the Concordance garrison tried to fight. They had 12 warships and an orbital weapons platform. They thought it would be enough. It wasn't. Disruptors tore through their shields in seconds. Torpedoes destroyed the weapons platform. Within an hour, the garrison surrendered or fled. They were free. Doctor went down to the planet's surface with the first diplomatic team. There were small, furry creatures who walked on 4 legs. They looked at the humans with eyes full of hope and fear. "We heard about Earth," their leader said through a translator. "We heard you defeated the Concordance fleet. We didn't believe it was possible." "It's possible," replied. "And we're here to prove it. You're free now. The Concordance won't control you anymore." "But they'll come back," the leader said. "They always come back." "Then we'll fight them again," said simply. "And this time you won't fight alone." The human fleet moved to the next system, and the next, and the next. Each time they freed another species. Each time they shared their technology and their tactics. Each time they offered alliance as equals, not as conquerors. The 17 species that had responded to President Bin's message joined the fight. They were weak individually, their military forces scattered and poorly equipped, but together with human ships and human weapons, they became strong. The Free Worlds Coalition was born. Commander Han took personal command of special operations. His mission was to hunt down Concordance leaders responsible for war crimes. Millions had died under Concordance occupation. Someone had to answer for those deaths. Overseer Axe, the commander who had threatened Earth during first contact, was found on a luxury station. He tried to escape. Captain Park's team caught him anyway. "You're a war criminal," Han told him coldly. "You ordered the massacre of civilians on 14 worlds. You authorized torture. You burned entire cities. Now you face justice. The Concordance will rescue me, Axe hissed. You cannot judge your superiors. You're not superior, Han replied. You're just a bully with a bigger stick, and we took your stick away. Axe was taken to a neutral station where representatives from the species he had victimized put him on trial. The evidence was overwhelming. He was found guilty of crimes against sapient life. The sentence was imprisonment for the rest of his life, to be served on a prison world where he could never hurt anyone again. It was justice, not revenge, that mattered. As human and allied fleets advanced, the Concordance crumbled. They had ruled through fear and overwhelming force, but fear doesn't work when people see the bully can bleed, and force doesn't work when the enemy has better weapons. World after world broke free. Some fought their way to freedom. Others, the Concordance simply abandoned as too costly to hold. The great empire that had lasted thousands of years collapsed in months. Chancellor, the supreme leader of the Concordance, watched his empire die from his capital world. He was old, even for his species. He had ruled for 2 centuries. He had never imagined this could happen. Request a meeting with the humans, he told his advisors. Offer them a ceasefire. They won't accept, one advisor said. They want complete victory. Then offer them complete victory, replied tiredly. Anything is better than watching our civilization burn. The meeting was held on a neutral space station. President Bin came, along with delegate who represented Earth in the Free World's coalition. Commander Han and Admiral provided security. Doctor attended as a scientific advisor. Chancellor looked ancient and defeated. His scales had faded to pale gray. His eyes held no defiance, only exhaustion. What do you want? He asked simply. Laid out humanity's demands. They had been debated and voted on by all members of the Free World's coalition. Every species that had suffered under the Concordance had a voice. First, the Concordance military dissolves immediately. All warships will be decommissioned or turned over to the Free World's coalition. Second, reparations will be paid to every species the Concordance conquered. These payments will continue for the next century. Third, every Concordance official responsible for war crimes will be tried by neutral courts. Fourth, all former Concordance worlds will hold free elections to determine their own governments. Fifth, the Concordance agrees to a non-aggression pact, enforced by the Free World's coalition for the next 500 years. Listen to it all, and if we refuse, then we keep fighting until you can't fight anymore, Han said. Your choice. That's not really a choice, replied bitterly. No, Bin agreed. It's not. You took away choices from 847 species. Now someone's taking away yours, that's justice. Sign the agreement. The Galactic Concordance officially ended. In its place rose the Commonwealth of Free Worlds, a true alliance where every member had equal voice and equal rights. Earth didn't become the new ruler of the galaxy. That would have made them no better than the Concordance. Instead, humanity became the defenders and the teachers. They shared their technology freely. They helped rebuild worlds the Concordance had stripped bare. They trained other species' militaries to defend themselves. 5 years passed. Doctor stood on a balcony overlooking Earth, watching ships from a dozen different species come and go. The sky was full of trade vessels, diplomatic shuttles, and tourist cruises. The galaxy was learning to be free. Thinking about the war, Commander Han asked, joining her. Thinking about what came after, she replied. We could have become conquerors. We had the weapons, the ships, the momentum. But we didn't, Han said, because that's not who we are. Who are we then? Han smiled. We're the species that refuses to kneel and helps others stand up. The Commonwealth now included 200 worlds. More joined every month, not because they were forced, but because they chose to. Because the Commonwealth offered something the Concordance never did: freedom. On Luna Base, Engineer Minyu Shin trained engineers from 50 different species in human technology. He taught them not just how to build weapons, but how to innovate, how to question, how to solve problems the way humans did. Captain Park commanded a mixed-species security force that hunted down the last Concordance holdouts. Most surrendered peacefully. Some fought. All were treated fairly according to Commonwealth law. Admiral established the Commonwealth Defense Academy. The first class had students from 30 different species, all learning to fight together, to trust each other, to defend freedom together. Nam, the farmer from Mars who had organized civilian resistance, returned to his greenhouses. But now he grew food for not just humans, but for alien refugees who needed shelter. His children played with alien children, learning that differences in appearance meant nothing compared to shared values. And on a quiet day, President Bin stood before the Commonwealth Assembly and gave a speech that would be remembered for centuries. The Concordants thought humans were weak because we were young. They thought we were primitive because we were different. They thought we would surrender because everyone else did. They were wrong about all of it, not because we're stronger though we are strong, not because we're smarter though we are innovative, but because we refuse to accept that might makes right. The galaxy tried to put us in chains. We broke those chains, and will break them for anyone else who needs us. That's not just human nature. That's what makes us who we are, and it's what will make the Commonwealth strong. Not weapons, not ships, not technology, but the idea that every sapient being deserves freedom, dignity, and respect. The assembly, filled with representatives from species that had been enemies months ago, rose as one and applauded. Commander Han stood at the Commonwealth Defense Academy, watching new graduates receive their commissions. They wore uniforms from 100 different worlds. They saluted in 50 different ways, but they all stood for the same thing. Remember, he told them, the Concordants ruled through fear. We defend through courage. They conquered through force. We unite through respect. They made slaves. We make allies. This is our promise to the galaxy. Never again will one species rule over another. Never again will the strong prey on the weak. And anyone who tries will face all of us together. The graduates shouted their agreement in a dozen languages. It sounded like chaos. It sounded like hope. Humanity had been underestimated. They had been undermined. They had been threatened with annihilation. They had clapped back so hard, they changed the galaxy forever. And they were just getting started.